Hello and welcome to lesson 4 on earthquakes. The first thing we're going to do today is just go over the quick quiz answers from lesson 3. So that was your fill in the gap about volcanoes. So the answers you should see right now, and so you can mark yours as we go through. We'll just talk it through. So volcano occurs where the plate movement is either destructive, oceanic crust is sinking under the continental one, or constructive, where plates are moving away from each other. Make sure you've got those two the right way round. Magma is remember that's lava, which is inside the earth, can be thin or runny, or thick and sticky, viscous. And this viscous gassy lava, which is what we have inside our composite volcanoes, causes the most dangerous eruptions because it can't escape from the volcano easily. The pressure builds up until the magma explodes out. Explosive eruptions produce particles of all sizes, from dust to blocks of rock, big chunks of rock thrown out, and these particles collapse and rush down the slopes of a volcano as deadly pyroclastic flow. So hopefully you've worked those out. You can copy that out or take a screenshot so that you've got the right answers now. Okay, so today's lesson we're going to be doing earthquakes, and this is a really interesting one because we get to see what happens, why they happen, and how this is going to affect people. And these really happen all over the world in every continent, so it's quite a topical thing at the moment. So we're going to first of all think about what actually are earthquakes, where do they happen, how might they happen, so what's happening inside the earth that causes them, and an example, and we're going to do another case study like you did for the volcanic eruption. So before we start, I want you to write down as many keywords as you can think of to do with earthquakes. Might be what causes them, might be the effects of them, might be the impacts. I want you to just write those down like on a post-it or on a rough piece of paper. Try and get 8 to 10 different facts or words or keywords about earthquakes. So pause the tape now, and I'm going to give you a minute to do that. So leave yourself for a minute and then come back to me. Okay, now you've done that, hopefully you've got some really good words. You can share them with anyone else that's in your house, your parents or brother and sister or anyone who's at home with you. And then we're going to watch this video, and the link is down below for you to click on. It's called Earthquakes 101. It's a National Geographic video. And then I want you to add to your post-it. If you need to go onto another post-it, that's fine. Or if you're on rough paper, just carry on writing rough paper any fun facts and information that you get from the video about how earthquakes happen. Okay, now we've done that, hopefully you've got a good idea about how earthquakes happen. You've kind of thought about all the knowledge you have already, and then we're gonna learn a little bit more about them. First of all, we need to know what they are. So a definition that I would like you to write down is: an earthquake is the shaking and vibration of the Earth's crust due to the movement of the Earth's tectonic plates. Remember those plates moving because of the convection currents? And earthquakes happen along plate boundaries. Sometimes they're a little bit further away from plate boundaries, but on the whole, they are caused by this movement at plate boundaries and the friction building up there, which makes our plate move, and that releases seismic waves. So pause the recording now and write your definition down. So you can see on our diagram, we've got our fault line here coming along the middle of our screen, and that is where our plate boundary is. And this example, which we're going to look at a little bit later, is of the Nepal 2015 earthquake. And you'll see here we've got a little star for the capital city, Kathmandu, and we've got Mount Everest so we can see and orientate ourselves, and this is the country of Nepal. So the area in green and yellow, all this bit down here and all up here, all this bit here, is showing the area where the earthquake occurred and where that shaking occurred. And the yellow around the epicenter, this orange yellow color here, is showing us where the worst shaking was. And this word epicenter that you'll see on the screen here is where our earthquake starts from on the surface of the earth. So we have the earthquake happening inside the plate boundary where the friction happens, and then the epicenter is the point on the surface where those seismic waves come out. And we're going to do that a little bit more. We're going to write some notes on that in a minute. First of all, we need to think about where we actually get earthquakes. So where are the earthquakes? If you're working online, it might be a good idea to copy and paste a picture or screenshot this map of where earthquakes occur. I'm sure the first thing you'll notice is that they tend to be on the plate boundaries. And what I would like you to do is to describe the location of earthquakes using 3 sentences or 4 about what's happening on this map. So I'd like you to think about where they are happening, plate boundaries. Maybe you might think of conservative plate boundaries, you might think of constructive plate boundaries, you might think of destructive plate boundaries. They all have earthquakes. And might think about largest magnitude. Have a look at the key down here so you can see the ones with high or low magnitude, because the little circles on the map show us where the high and low magnitude ones are. So stop the tape. I imagine this will take you about 4 or 5 minutes to do, and then we'll go through what you should have written. So the first thing you'll probably notice is that the first sentence I would have written here is earthquakes occur on plate boundaries. That's the first thing I would have said. Then I would say that they occur on all types of plate boundaries. So hopefully you learned that in lesson 2, but we can see them happening on conservative plate boundaries like the ones over here and here. We can see them happening on collision plate boundaries like the one above the Himalayas here. We can see them happening on destructive plate boundaries like the ones in the Pacific Ring of Fire and here, and we can see them happening on constructive plate boundaries like these here. So anytime there is plate movement, you will get earthquakes, or there is a potential for earthquakes. Second thing, you might have mentioned some specific continents or places. So probably the Ring of Fire over here, this one. You might have mentioned the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, which is this one that goes all the way down here. You might have mentioned down the coast of South America. Any of these would have been fine. So name some locations where earthquakes occur. If you haven't done that, add that in. And hopefully you've thought about the magnitude. So the first thing you probably say is there are many low magnitude earthquakes, 4 to 4.9 on our magnitude scale, because there's lots of yellow circles on our map. Then you probably go say there's fewer of the high magnitude earthquakes, the red circle, to 8 to 9.9 on the magnitude scale. There's fewer of those because they are much higher earthquakes, but you can see that they are happening around the Pacific Ring of Fire. Along here we can see the red circles. We can see them along here near Indonesia. We can see some up here in Eurasia. So if you can name some places where we get those high magnitude earthquakes, that would be good as well. If you don't know the name of the plate, you can look it up on a plate tectonics map, or you can name the country nearest, so use the world map to find that. So why do earthquakes actually happen? So I've got 4 boxes coming up on the slide here, and I want you to have a look at the diagram. You'll see the focus here. There's a copy of this diagram on the sheet so that you can print it off and have a look at it. The focus is the point in which the Earth's surface, the point inside the Earth's surface in which the earthquake starts. So this is where the friction is building up. And the epicenter is that point on the surface. So if we were looking at a news documentary or a news article, they might say the epicenter, because they care about where on the surface the earthquake is strongest, because that's where humans live and that's where people are, near cities. Whereas the geologists are more interested in the focus, because they want to know where the actual earthquake started from inside the Earth's crust. So I would like you to put the boxes in the right order. There's 4 on the side there, and then I'll give you the right answer. So copy those down onto your sheet or onto a piece of paper, and then you can write, just check you've got the right answers in a second. So pause now. Okay, so the right answers. Why do earthquakes happen? The 2 plates at a plate margin cannot move past each other easily, so they get caught, they get stuck. The 2 plates lock together. Friction causes pressure to build up along the plate boundary, and suddenly the pressure is eventually released. Imagine like your hands rubbing against each other. There's going to be friction generated there, and they're going to get stuck, and eventually one is going to jolt, and that pressure is then released and the plates jolt into a new position. That gives us the seismic waves, okay, so coming out, and these vibrations cause our earthquake, and we have the focus inside the crust and the epicenter on the surface. Check you've got the right answers, and if not, correct those so you've got them in the right order. Okay, when we're talking about earthquakes, we often think about the damage that's caused, and we think about how humans are affected by them. So you might have heard of the Richter scale. So earthquakes are measured on the Richter scale, sometimes called an Earth magnitude scale. And anything above a 7 on our magnitude scale is deemed as very, very strong. So if we're looking at our magnitude scale here, what's special about it is that it's actually a logarithmic scale. So what this means is each number step up here on our scale, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, is 10 times stronger than the one before. So a number 4 is 10 times as strong as a number 3, and a number 5 is 10 times as strong as a number 4, or 100 times as strong as a number 3, because it's 10 times 10. So a number 6 is 1,000 times stronger than a number 3, 100 times stronger than a 3. Sorry, a 5 is 100 times stronger than a 3, or a 4 is 10 times as strong as a 3. So it goes up 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. Don't worry if you don't quite understand that, because it is a bit complicated, but just think that actually a number 7 and a number 8 up here have major serious damage. So loss of life would be expected, serious damage to properties, buildings, and kind of jobs, and major economic losses because of the earthquake. Now, if you want to find out more about the Richter scale or the magnitude scales, watch this video, which I'll put in the comments below, which is quite a good video and explains a lot more about it. We haven't got much time today to do that, but there's a lot more information available if you find that interesting. So now you're going to complete your case study. So there's a case study sheet on the link below that you can follow. And I've put the slides here for you. You can work through them yourself at your own pace. Just pause the tape so that you can fill out your case study sheet. So first of all, we're going to do the Nepal April 2015 earthquake. I've chosen this one for you and I've got some information on the slides. If you would like to go off on your own and do your own version of a case study, you can do that and then just come back for the last slide so you've got the quick quiz at the end. You can pick a different earthquake if you would like, but next lesson we're going to do tsunamis, so don't choose one that's got a tsunami because we're going to be doing that next lesson. So if you are going to choose a different earthquake, pick one, but please don't pick one that's got a tsunami because we'll probably be doing that next week. So there's some information, background information on Nepal here for you. You can fill that in on your case study sheet. You can get a map, and you can put some information or a picture of the damage that was caused. So pause that if you want to copy that down. This is the type of plate boundary it was. So it's a collision boundary. So remember the two continental plates pushing upwards, which creates those shock waves as the plates rub against each other and that friction is created. There are many impacts popping up on the screen for you here. I'd like you to choose 3 from each column. 3 from social, 3 from economic, and 3 from environmental. Remember, social impacts are anything to do with people. So it might be like homes, it might be number of deaths, it might be injuries, it might be hospitals being affected or schools being affected. Economic is anything to do with money. So that might be how much money the businesses were lost, that business is lost, or it might be how much money it costs to rebuild the buildings. And then remember, our environmental ones are anything to do with the natural environment. So forests, animals, avalanches, anything to do with the natural environment. So pick 3 from each column and write those on your sheet. So pause that now. And then responses, I want you to think about how you would help people immediately after an earthquake event. So thinking about the impacts you've just written down, how could you help people who are still alive, still living there and trying to cope with the aftermath of this horrible event? How would you try and help them and deal with those impacts? Remember, it's quite a poor country, so you can't just go in and spend lots and lots of money because they won't have that to spend. So think about how you might manage the earthquake. Try and come up with 5 different ways to deal with 5 of your impacts. And then I'm going to give you some examples of what they actually did that you can write down on your sheet. So pause now. Okay, so what they actually did. So there's some examples here for you that you can write down onto your sheet. Tent cities for anyone who was made homeless. Soldiers from the Nepalese army were brought in to rescue people from the rubble and get them out safely. Bottled water, because lots of the water in the pipes became contaminated. So they had to, that was dangerous and it could make people ill. So they had to bring in bottled water. Charity workers from different countries, particularly doctors and nurses, were flown in to help those who were injured and work in the hospitals, volunteering to work in the hospitals. They did crisis mapping, which is a map where they can work out the worst hit areas, and they can try to dig out survivors in those locations. So for example, it shows on the map where there might have been a school or a hospital that was brought down and now is kind of falling down, but maybe we can get some people out of there and direct our money and our search efforts in the best places possible. And then the USA and the UK gave some money. The UK gave £73 million to help to fund the rescue operations and the rebuilding of buildings. So there's some pictures up here. I want you to look at your responses and think, match them up. So which one do you think is which? Match the image to the response, and then if you've got time, you can watch some videos or research a bit more about the Nepal 2015 earthquake to add to your case study sheet as well. Some pictures might be fun to help you remember your case study. Okay, as ever, we got a quick quiz at the end, so I'd like you to unscramble these anagrams that are on the board. So there's 5 different ones for you, all about earthquakes and plate tectonics. So I want you to, you've learned all of these words in the last few lessons, most of them today. So I want you to try and unscramble them and get the right answers, and then the answers will be on the beginning of lesson 5. Thank you very much for listening. Please like and subscribe down below so that you get the notification when the next video is uploaded. And let me know if you've got any questions. I'll try and answer them when I can. Thank you.